There we are. There we are. Hello, everyone. It's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I was seeing weird stuff with my mic. That's why I was looking at it. I was like, all right, something's wrong with that. Let me make sure my sound is where it's supposed to be. Sounds right, 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 right. Let's bump that up to 100. And the world is good. I gotta be honest, I don't fully feel like doing this particular video, but I want to do it because it's one of those things I've been noticing today. Slightly annoys me, so while it's on my mind, I want to do it and while I have everything set up. Before I go into it, I want to thank everybody who subscribes. I want to thank everyone who likes videos. I want to thank everyone who shares videos. I want to thank all of my patrons, and I would like to thank the people who give super cash while I'm doing my vids. You guys are immensely appreciated, and you guys help keep the content going. Going past that to what I want to discuss, I would like to discuss the Nune memo. I've done a video on this already. I could put the link to the video at the bottom. I want to take a particular perspective of this, or at the very least I want to hit a particular part of this that seems to be completely avoided by people on the left, at least the people on the left that I've seen talk about it. I understand that Donald Trump is a miserable human being. I get it. I don't particularly like him either. I think Donald Trump's a bit of a maniac. I understand that there are people on the left that believe Donald Trump is going to eat your kittens and your puppies, that he is going to be the end bringer, the doom bringer, the bringer of rain, and all this other stuff. I get it. He's not the person who I would prefer in that office. And as a decent human being, I have my doubts. That being said, rehabilitating George Bush, a war criminal, somebody who started a war, killed 1 million Iraqis, including torture, which was against the law, in order to attack Donald Trump, is gross. It's immensely gross. From the Nune's memo standpoint, lefties bolstering the intelligence state, literally lefties backing mass surveillance in order to attack Donald Trump, is just as gross. It's just as gross. So there are 2 points that I want to make. The arguments against the Nune's memo seem to miss the point. Seems to demonstratively miss the point. The case of saying, well, look, the entire memo wasn't the thing that wasn't being used in an FBI investigation in order to make the FISA warrant case. It's not really the point. Did they withhold information from the judge? Well, there are 2 main points. And they slightly contradict, but there are 2 main points. Did they withhold information from the judge? That the information from the Steele dossier was bought and paid for by Donald Trump's political opponent? That's a yes or no. That's a yes or no. Did they withhold information? When they went to that FISA judge, did they explain to the judge that A, this is unsubstantiated, that B, this is from a political opponent, C, this political opponent did not want Donald Trump to win that office at all? Did they explain some of the weirdness that was going on with the FBI, meaning some of the people being bribed? And in other cases, people having a deep passion to make sure that Donald Trump didn't win that race. Or having the same person working on the Hillary camp that worked to get the language changed in the Hillary camp. I'm saying this wrong. They worked to get the language changed in regards to the Hillary Clinton investigation, the email thing, while at the same token working on Donald Trump's case also. I mean, some of the stuff looks a little weird in regards to the incentives that was built into some of the processes that these people were working on. So I don't necessarily think Republicans are crazy for saying, hey, this looks a little weird. Is this the complete be-all and end-all exoneration of Donald Trump? No. But does this make the premise that the FBI and the Justice Department used to go for that FISA warrant sketchy? Yes. It makes it look sketchy. It makes it look like it was a political hit job. Using information that was unsubstantiated from your political opponent looks entirely sketchy. Now, that being said, that's my first point. The second point, when I'm reading this Salon article, it's funny to me that he calls someone a hack, because I'm looking at him thinking the exact same thing about the author of this article. I'm not going to call his name out. Look, Republicans are hacks. Republicans are going to put out information to try to protect their guy. Republicans do not want Donald Trump to get impeached. So, yeah, they're going to do what they have to do to protect their guy. If that means attack Mueller, they're going to attack Mueller. If that means putting out information to gut the premise or pretext of the investigation, they're going to put out information that guts the pretext of the investigation. It's going to put a law to make this look that much more murkier in regards to whether or not they should have been wiretapping Donald Trump. That being said, it doesn't make what they're saying wrong. It doesn't make what they're saying wrong. That being said, Democrats are also hacks. Meaning Democrats are going to put out their case, their information, to try to impeach or to impugn the testimony that the first Nune has put out. Democrats are also hacks. In this situation, they want to try to attack Donald Trump. They want to use Trump and Russia. And the last thing they want to do is to undermine the case that they made. Meaning, they want to bolster the case as much as possibly can with Trump and Russia. Even though they've yet to show that Russia did what they say it did. And not showing what Russia did what it said it did. Certainly not creating a link between Trump and Russia, even in that process. And yet, they still, the engine that could continuously scream Trump and Russia. The FBI looks bad in this. It looks like they were used as political agents and political hit jobs. Now, we know from Comey's testimony that Loretta Lynch's Justice Department wanted Comey to speak in a language that wasn't necessarily true, essentially molding his language to make it look like Hillary Clinton was less in trouble than what she actually was. Now, that's assuming that Comey actually did an investigation, which he really didn't do. He had already come to a conclusion before actually even talking to Hillary Clinton. I'm just saying, when you're looking at the totality of it, it looks like the FBI and the Justice Department was being used as political weapons. That's what it looks like to me. That being said, the argument that many of these pieces make and many of these lefties make is, look, at the end of the day, they would have still gotten a FISA warrant on Trump. So all of this is somewhat of a moot point. It's beyond the point. Why would they have been given FISA warrants if there wasn't anything to get a FISA warrant on? Meaning these guys went to the judge 3 times, and it makes it look as if Trump is more guilty because they're continuously going and getting a FISA warrant. Here's the catch, and this is the thing that annoys the shit out of me when I'm hearing lefties talk about this. 99.7% of the time, a FISA warrant is approved. 99.7% of the time. Some agent goes to a judge. There's nobody there as your arbiter. That is that particular agent talking to that particular judge. That agent is only talking to that judge because he wants to get rid of your Fourth Amendment rights. He wants to get his hands on you. He wants to surveil your communications. That's the only reason. There is nobody there as your benefactor. Whatever that guy says is what the judge has to take as being the word of God. And the judge makes a determination based upon what that person, that officer, or whoever that person is, who's trying to get his hands on you in the first place. 99.7% of the time. The reason that the FISA warrant would have been approved for Donald Trump had nothing to do with Donald Trump being guilty. It had nothing to do with Donald Trump looking guilty. It has everything to do with the judge being a fucking rubber stamp. Now, lefty media looks at this and says, see, they gave a FISA warrant multiple times. I mean, clearly, the judge wouldn't have given it if there was no reason to give it. 99.7% of the time, they approve a FISA warrant. You can indict a ham sandwich. You can get a surveillance warrant on a ham sandwich if you wanted to get a surveillance warrant on a ham sandwich. 99.7%. That number is mind-blowing. That means that ultimately, it's a rubber stamp. The judge can be a robot. Somebody goes, hey, we need to get this on this. The judge listens to the officer. He has a pretty face. His face looks kind of, he looks honest. Looks like an honest guy. I work with Bob. Bob's not going to lie to me. If Bob says somebody is guilty, somebody's probably guilty. So here, wiretap that guy. Fuck his Fourth Amendment rights. And this information that's being taken goes beyond terrorism. That information is being given to other departments and used to indict other people, meaning used to go after other people that had nothing to do with terrorism. You're in a police state. Congratulations. And the lefties, instead of bitching about this, I understand Donald Trump is a bad guy. I understand that Donald Trump is dangerous. I understand all that stuff. But you're living in a surveillance state. You have 5% of the world's population with 25% of the world's population in your prison. And in this case, using scant evidence at best. And I understand lefties and Democrats want to pretend as if this evidence was this massive amount of evidence. You don't need a massive amount of evidence to get a FISA warrant. You don't need pretty much anything. 99.7% of the time. It's so often. It's almost 100%. They give a warrant so often that ultimately you can't use the fact that they gave a warrant as evidence of anything. The argument that the Nunez memo is somehow an indictment of Trump because the people gave this warrant or gave the FISA warrant multiple times. The fact that they approved it means nothing. The fact that they approved it means nothing. And you should be more outraged by the fact that they allowed this to go in the first place. This is literally mass surveillance. You don't even need a FISA. Get rid of the FISA court. Why do you need it? It's there purely as a fig leaf. That's all it's there for. It's a fig leaf. It's trying to make it look like there's some actual process. There's some credible process that takes place that makes or protects your Fourth Amendment rights. There are none. There are none. The biggest bombshell about the Nunez memo is not what the FBI said. The FBI is full of hacks. It's not what the Democrats say. The Democratic Party is full of hacks. It's not what the Republicans say. The Republican Party is full of hacks. How do you find honesty in a process where everybody in the process is a dog in a hunt and everybody is being dishonest? What I would say is, who knows what actually takes place? Who knows what's actually honest? Until I see a connection between Trump and Russia, I don't believe the Trump and Russia thing. Until I see something that shows Russia hacked the election, I don't believe that either. This is Russiagate. This is a conspiracy theory to me. Ultimately, in each of the countries, France and Germany, where they said and screamed that there was going to be Russian interference, there was none. Both of those countries have come out and said there was no interference in our countries from Russia. The United States has shown nothing. They've said, take our word for it. The intelligence services, take our word for it. They've never even seen the servers. They've never even tested the servers. And the information that has been out, when there was a test on the information and the data that was released, showed it was a leak, not a hack. So you can understand I'm skeptical already of the pretext of this. And if this Nunez memo is coming out saying they didn't even give the judge all of the information, I am going to be that much more skeptical of this investigation. That being said, it's somewhat of a moot point. 99.7% of the time, those requests are approved. Didn't matter what was in that Nunez memo. Didn't matter. Anybody going to that judge, asking that judge for a warrant, 99.7% of the time, it didn't matter what that agent said. That agent was going to come back with the ability to bypass somebody's Fourth Amendment rights. The conversation that needs to be had here is whether or not you want to be in a surveillance state. Whether or not you think it's okay that at any moment, any random agent can decide to strip away your Fourth Amendment rights, surveil what you're saying, what you're doing, get electronic monitoring on you. Whether you did something or not is kind of besides the point. The only thing he has to do is go to the judge and get that judge, which gives it off as a rubber stamp, the legal right to surveil you. That's the mind-blowing component of this Nunez memo. That seems to be the component that lefties should be pissed off about. I understand they dislike Donald Trump. Fair enough. At what point did lefties become the party of the FBI, the protectors in the FBI, the organization of Hoover? I just find this to be amazing. Look, I have no idea what Democrats are going to come out with their memo. Democrats, of course, are going to say and bitch and moan, saying, oh my God, they're being selective in the information they pass. Of course they're going to say that. Of course. In the same way that Republicans are going to say, this is clearing Donald Trump. What's true? Who knows? Maybe both is true. Maybe neither is true. Maybe it's somewhere in between the middle. What we do know, the information that we do have, is that the FBI is engaging in mass surveillance. I don't understand why people are okay with it. I don't understand that part. So, let's see. Torben Chris G.S. According to a report in the Washington Post, relying on information provided by Snowden, 90% of those placed under surveillance in the United States are ordinary Americans and are not the intended targets. I can believe it. Stephen Colbert 5. Something in the movie Snowden, the CIA just made up a non-existent court to try and excuse their spying. That's it. That's it. I mean, think about, the ridiculousness of this. Democrats, lefties, are pretending as if there's some legitimacy to the FISA court. They're acting like if it's a real court. It's like at what point do you go to a court as if there's some decision making in the process? The assumption of a court is that a jury or some kind of judgment is being made. This is a rubber fucking stamp. This is a rubber stamp. That's all this is. Let's see. Just put a final point on it. NSA handing intelligence to Justice Department for non-terror cases. If the information from surveillance or wiretap is used in NSA is inconsistent with the warrant or other permission from FISA court, certainly there will be a violation of the law. Senator Blumenthal, a former U.S. Attorney and State Attorney General. Unfortunately, we have no access to the FISA court opinions or orders that may authorize the activity because they are largely secret. This represents another clear and powerful reason that we need more transparency in the FISA court. What he's talking about is information that's picked up in the FISA court being handed off, or FISA investigation, to another department. That department now has information against a person. That person may have no access to what took place in that court at all. How can you defend yourself when the proceedings that pulled information are secret? That's what he's getting at. That's the point that he's talking about. Let's see. I'm putting the Nune's memo in this place. And by the way, Nune said that this is just the beginning. He's saying this is just the part that gets across this idea that they weren't being honest. And if he's right and they weren't being honest with that judge, those people committed felonies. But let's bring that down a notch. That they just weren't being honest for some other reason. That they didn't provide all the information. This is just the first phase. He's saying that the investigation goes further, the next step, into the State Department. So this should be interesting as more and more memos and more information is released that they're trying to get across that this Russia investigation is bogus. And right now, I hate to say it, I agree with them. So lefties are defending the deep state. And I don't use that term often, but I'm using it here for a very specific reason. A FISA court is a secret court. And it's not even a court. You shouldn't even call it a court. It's just somebody giving a stamp. It's just a guy with an arm. Calling it a court is there purely for political effect. It's to make it look as if some decision is being made. Something is taking place. Some process that has some level of integrity associated with it is taking place. Look, 99.7% of the time it's not a jury. It's not a judging. It's not a decision. For the most part, your decision is a foregone conclusion before you step foot into it. Before you get out of bed in the morning, you already know what you're going to decide. It's a rubber stamp. That means you're living in a police state. You're under mass surveillance at any particular time. 0.3% of the time, you'll get off if some random person asks to put a warrant on you, or some random agent. I mean, I find this to be amazing. Where is... I had that paper pulled up, or that page pulled up. Yeah, I put it on the link at the bottom. I'm not going to hold this one too long. It was a thing showing that the overwhelming majority of those things are just rubber stamp. It's just rubber stamp. It's like lefties. Up your game. I understand you don't like Donald Trump, but are you perfectly okay with what the Nune's memo is saying? It amazes me that lefties are okay with this. It's like, if this was any other situation, I have a hard time believing that lefties would be supporting this. Copter force. There's nothing new that surveillance spying get used against political opponents instead of maybe happening to include legitimate enemies that should be spied on, like white power militias. That's true, but come on. I mean, there's something weird. Well, not weird. I understand that for the most part, these guys are political hacks. So whichever way the wind blows that's against their opponent, they're perfectly okay with it, even if under normal circumstances, their political allegiances or their political identity will be against it. Lefties are usually against these power centers in this way. That's what I'm saying. It's hackneyed. It's the height of hackneyed. To be willing to be okay with somebody like George Bush in order to attack Donald Trump, or to be willing to be okay with the surveillance state, again, in order to attack Donald Trump. I just find this to be amazing. They classify protesters as low-level terrorist threats. They did the same thing to Black Lives Matter. we have our own Stasi, Mercedes Kelly. Yeah, it is our own Stasi. And what's worst about it is that the left, the political left, is looking at the Stasi as being some kind of legitimate agency, and that the fact that they brought some kind of charges against Donald Trump or brought some kind of charges in order to spy on him is indication of guilt. Like, understand what I'm saying? The argument that they're making is, look, even in the Nunes memo, they brought back charges multiple times. Well, that's indicative of, of guilt. I mean, otherwise, why would they keep going back, and why would they continuously get spying? Why would they continuously be able to spy? But the point I'm making here is, with a 99.7 approval rate on the request, how can you use that as indication of anything? It's a rubber stamp. You can't use that as indication of guilt of Trump in this case, because it's a rubber stamp. Say for the moment that there wasn't Carter Page. Say it was a ham sandwich. And said an agent went and said, we wanted to get a FISA warrant on a ham sandwich. They would have likely gotten that FISA warrant on a ham sandwich. I mean, I'm trying to get across how rubber stampish this is. That ultimately, this is not evidence of guilt. It's not evidence of anything. More likely than not, that warrant would have been applied for. Even if the information would have been revealed that this was from a political opponent, that warrant would have been given. It wouldn't have mattered what was said. The very act that the officer or the agent went to get a warrant, that warrant would have been given. This is the point I'm getting at. It's not indication of guilt. It's not indication of anything. It's an indication that it's a rubber stamp. That's the only thing you can say it's an indication of. So yeah. Worse than the Stasi, they only have files on 10% of the population. Shit, these guys monitor pretty much everybody. And anybody is fair game. Anybody is fair game. The wars in Iraq is the single worst thing that the administration has started happened during their tenure. Yeah, I agree. Like, this idea that you're going to invade a country, murder 1 million people, having those people stream into other countries, creating the pretext for things like ISIS, just destabilizing an entire region. In addition to having torture, and some of those videos where they're showing American troops raping some of their inmates. That was us. That was us. The guy who initiated that. In one country, that crook Tony Blair is still on the political scene. His ass should be in prison. His ass should be under prison. And the other clown, George Bush, is walking around still getting accolades by the Democrats, by the faux left, in order to attack Donald Trump. He murdered 1 million people, and Democrats have seen fit to rehabilitate him in order to use him to attack Donald Trump. That's how gross and disgusting that party has become. That's how gross and disgusting they've become. And I'm not all that happy with some of the left media who thinks that this is perfectly okay with regards to using the intelligence services to attack Donald Trump in this way. Knowing, or maybe they don't know, that the majority of the attacks or the majority of the claims against these requests are just approved. The approval of a request is not indication of anything. It's not indication of anything. Dewey Bueno. Actually, the false flag gas attacks in Syria are, we blame Russia for the new gas attacks. We need to stop this government. We blame Syria and didn't even wait for the indication for the test results. Do you remember that first time around? So there were 2 gas attacks, supposedly, by Syria. So Seymour Hersh made this point that, well, wait a minute, this gas attack wasn't done by the Syrian government. According to Seymour Hersh, there was evidence that there were canisters and that movement of materials by Syrian rebels were found. Now, the catch for this is the United States was supplying resources and aid to Syrian rebels. So the question becomes, well, were these the same Syrian rebels that the United States was supplying aid and comfort to? Who knows? We were supporting terrorists in the region. Were these terrorists the same terrorists that potentially release these canisters in order to frame the Syrian government? Seymour Hersh makes the point of saying yes, that this wasn't the Syrian government, that more likely than not, this was essentially rebel forces doing this. Now, Seymour Hersh also makes a point that the reason why Obama failed to strike wasn't so much that Russia came up with a solution, but more so that they realized that it wasn't Syria's fault. Now, Donald Trump comes in office. There's a gas attack. Donald Trump, after, mind you, he's already murdered at this point dead babies. He's murdered tens, maybe even hundreds of dead babies. And yet, he sees one dead baby. Oh, the dead babies. The dead babies. I'm heartbroken by the dead babies. Yes, I know I killed a lot of dead babies, but this particular dead baby has a particular telegenic view of himself. And I like TV personalities, so this televised dead baby did it for me. And Donald Trump doesn't wait to figure out who actually did the strike, because Donald Trump didn't particularly care where the gas canister came from. And he did a strike on Syria. Now, the media didn't say, oh my God, the President of the United States just attacked another country for false pretext. They didn't say that a canister released in some other country that in no way affected us was pretext for attack or reason enough for the United States to attack another nation. They didn't say any of this stuff. They were perfectly okay, and this is the moment that Donald Trump seems presidential. We do this stuff to create pretext. The reality of it is less important. We do this stuff to create pretext. Oh my God, there's a canister of something. Oh, we need to attack. We need to attack. Oh, the people of Libya, they need our help. They need our help. Killing Libyans with our bombs is a much better way of killing Libyans as opposed to allowing the Gaddafi to kill those same Libyans. So yes, we're going to pay terrorists in Libya to undermine that government, and we're going to use our air power to destroy that government. Because we're murdering these people in order to help these people. Understand the ridiculousness of this. We're going to go into Iraq and we're going to go in as champions. We're going to liberate the Iraqis, and they're going to love the fact that Americans are in Iraq. Not so much. Not so much. I mean, you can go back from one war to the next. The same pretext is usually there. It's usually not done for good ends. It's usually not done for good reasons. But there usually is an excuse that's made up to try to justify it to the American public. And the media is usually obsequious to whatever the government goes along with in regards to this war footing. So yeah, man. They make this stuff up constantly. There's no way to know what's actually true. You know, I've reported this story before when they were talking about the Kennedy files. How they wanted to create a false flag attack on Cuba or on Florida to make it look like Cubans attacked Florida to create a pretext to go into Cuba. Painting the flag or on a jet to make it so if the jet gets shot down or if the plane gets shot down, America will have a pretext to go into Iraq. All sorts of shit that they've done in order to try to create reasons and justifications to attack other countries. Yeah, it's insane, man. All presidents are owned at this point. We have to get rid of most in our government. Due bueno. Makes sense, Kelly. We cannot name an honest war in modern history. Maybe World War II, but that's as far as I can get. That's as far as I can get. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin wasn't honest. The Korean War, maybe it started as honest. I mean, it depends on what you mean by honest. If you're talking about honest as being perfectly okay with trying to, this kind of Cold War mentality of putting dictators and stopping this kind of popular uprisings in various countries, then, you know, those weren't necessarily honest from the standpoint of doing what's best for the public in the American way. More so doing what's best for America and putting in strongmen in some countries and crushing revolutions in other countries. None of those things were honest from the standpoint of whatever the public wanted. When they... when the CIA worked with Britain to overthrow the Shah in Iran, overthrow Iranian government, secular government, they put in a strongman, they put in a brutal strongman. That brutal strongman had nothing to do with what the public wanted. It had everything to do with maintaining the oil in that country under British hands. Yeah, honest wars. What is an honest war? What is an honest war? Alright, this one is not going to be long. 30 minutes is perfectly okay. Yeah, it's perfectly okay. Alright, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks, guys.